Today, I'm bringing you my top 5 wide receivers to buy or sell before the 2023 season. These are guys I believe can really help your team and take your team to the next level, or guys I believe you should get off your team before it's too late. Before we get into it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know which wide receivers you are buying or selling. And as always, guys, go to flockfantasy.com/land. That is the best way to support what Zach and I are doing here. Get the fantasy hotline. We have our fantasy leagues. We have our rankings. All those things are located on flockfantasy.com. Our rankings, our bonus content, our articles, not only from Zach and I, but all the other content creators on the website. So once again, flockfantasy.com, get 30% off at sign up and a 2-day free trial, which is awesome. So let's get straight into the video. My first sell high wide receiver, and yes, this may be a little bit biased, but really hear me out, and I'm really trying to take the bias away and really give you my true thought process on this player. That's Kadarius Toney. Obviously, if you guys know, I am a New York Giants fan, so when he came in, first of all, I was a little bit skeptical of why we traded him so early. That was a Dave Gettleman days. Joe Shane, Brian Dable comes in, they trade him away to the Kansas City Chiefs in, I would say, late October, early November in this past year in 2022. Look, Kadarius Toney, without a doubt, is a very, very talented wide receiver. He's quick, he's fast, he's really hard to tackle, really great in short areas, and without a doubt, he can be a threat. But my biggest problem with Kadarius Toney, can he stay available? Can he stay on the field? Can he not go through another injury once again on the Chiefs and in a full? Can he stay on the field for a full season? Right, because we haven't seen that. And let me tell you, in 2022. He missed 9 games, okay? In 2021, he missed 8 games. That is a total of 17 games he has missed in the span of 2 seasons, which means if you really break that down, he's only played 1 full season of NFL football if you put all those games together, right? So he has been injured without a doubt. He has missed a lot of time, and he has been a headache really trying to understand, okay, you drafted this guy probably in the first round and the early second in your rookie mocks or rookie drafts, excuse me. And now he goes with Patrick Mahomes, who skyrockets, by the way, completely skyrockets when he does get traded. And let me remind you, Kadarius Toney wasn't that, he was wide receiver 45 because of the injury history. Coming into the season, can Kadarius Toney stay healthy? We all said Kadarius Toney will be a massive threat if he stays healthy. Can he stay healthy? He goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. He goes from wide receiver around 45 to 44 all the way to wide receiver 29 with Patrick Mahomes, without a doubt. When you go on a team with probably one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, there's no doubt that you're going to skyrocket in fantasy rankings. But once again, his availability needs to be key, and I'm not sure Kadarius Toney is ever going to be a guy that's going to be able to play a full slate, a full 17-game season. And once again, even going back to his college days, he has, in 2019, he's missed 6 out of 13 games. And obviously he's missed a couple games here and there, just like any other player. But the majority of his career has always been injury history. Put that aside, okay? Injuries aside, he is very, very talented. But as a fantasy owner, as someone that has Kadarius Toney and owns Kadarius Toney, I'm not sure if I want to take the risk anymore. If anything, I want to have a risk aversion move and sell him high at the right time. Remember, I don't want to sell him maybe right now. I want to give you guys a hint or saying, hey, keep this guy in mind, because when the price is right and when he continues to rise, it will be a perfect opportunity. Let me tell you Kadarius Toney's injury history, because I think this is something really serious and really, for some people don't understand. Yeah, well, he hasn't been on the field. He has been on the field. I think some of these injuries have been really important for the history of where he can potentially be going, where his ceiling might be capped at, right? In 2021, when he first joined the league, thigh hamstring strain, grade 2 in August, missed the majority of the training camp, obviously with Daniel Jones there, and he didn't have the rhythm, right? October 10th, sprayed ankle, always a problem. And then he re-aggravated that ankle again after he was on IR. He came back 4 weeks later, has the exact same injury. He has a quad strain, abdominal muscle strain, a shoulder injury, a knee tear, and that was after essentially coming into the preseason in the 2022 season. Then when he gets traded to the Chiefs, before he gets traded to the Chiefs, he was on the IR for 4 weeks. The game that he was going to come back in, he gets traded away, and then he gets injured on his first week playing with the Chiefs. I mean, the injury history is there. He was injured going into the Super Bowl. The only reason why he was playing was because it was a Super Bowl. I can guarantee you that, right? So, look, once again, I'm not saying Kadarius Toney is a bad player. I'm not saying Kadarius Toney is never going to be this guy. I think when you think of a fantasy player, like Kadarius Toney, you want to do risk aversion. So if you can sell him for the right price at the right time, I think is really good. Right now, Kadarius Toney's price is around the 204. Do I want to sell him for the 204? I would say the 202, right? Because I'm really happy, and I would actually take the swing on a Josh Downs rather. We've seen Zay Flowers fall into the early second, but at the same time, is he really going to fall there? A Michael Mayer, right? A Dalton Kincaid, if they get first round draft capital and they fall in that early second. Look, I know you're going to have to be playing the long haul, but Kadarius Toney, a wide receiver with injuries, with a tight end history, hypothetically, with Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, that doesn't have an extensive injury history like Kadarius Toney, I would rather take that chance on one of those players. Same thing with Josh Downs, Zay Flowers, if they do fall into the early second. Once again, I'm not saying to sell him right now. I'm saying hold him, listen, wait for the price to rise, and then sell him. So this is a really early sell high option, but I think it's a great move if you can move Kadarius Toney at the right time. Let's stay with the Kansas City Chiefs and Kadarius Toney's teammate, and I am going to the buy side of this video now. That is Sky Moore. Sky Moore, I personally believe, is a good buy low opportunity right now if you're looking for a wide receiver. According to the community, he is wide receiver 49, and he is only 22 and a half years old. And what's really important about Sky Moore versus Kadarius Toney obviously is the injury history, but another thing is the investment. Sky Moore was a second round pick with the 22nd pick in 2022. That's all twos out of Western Michigan, right? So clearly they were trying to fill in this void of Tyreek Hill, not with the extreme talent that Tyreek Hill was and the elite talent that he has left, that void with the Kansas City Chiefs, but they were trying to find someone that can play a good role and step up and stay healthy on the field. And that has been a massive problem with the Chiefs, right? McCole Hardman couldn't stay on the field. MVS at the time couldn't stay on the field back in the day. Sky Moore is a guy that can stay on the field and that can handle a workload that we've seen out of college. Look, yes, we've had the endorsement from Andy Reid for both Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, saying they're going to be a massive part of the 2022 season. And yes, he is not going to be this guy that's going to just be this wide receiver one now. He's not going to be a guy that's going to take targets away from Travis Kelce. But the progression and the investment, once again, that they have invested in Sky Moore with the second round pick in 2022 is very important, once again, compared to Kadarius Toney. So if you wanted to be paying a price and trying to acquire Sky Moore right now, he is currently going in a mid to late second round pick, where in your rookie drafts, you probably draft him in the end of the first round. He was going, there was some leagues where we saw Sky Moore going like in the middle of the first, like the 105, 106, 107, just because he had that Patrick Mahomes bump, right? But realistically, he was going in the end of the first, maybe from the 109 all the way to the 112. Now that you can get him for the 208 in the Dynasty startup with a wide receiver class than this year's class that is not as strong, with you already know the landing spot and where the trajectory he can be going, especially with Patrick Mahomes, is significant. Not only that, I think you can definitely get Sky Moore for a really good price if you want to pivot from some of other wide receivers. So according to community, Gabe Davis, you can trade him away. He's wide receiver 49. Tyler Lockett, if you want to go a little bit younger, wide receiver 46. You can even trade away, once again, the 208 to acquire Sky Moore. So the price is there. And I think right now he's sitting at wide receiver 49. I can definitely see him hitting the low end 30s. And then right before the season, when Kadarius Toney is not healthy, Kadarius Toney is going to miss some preseason workout or miss some of the preseason because he's not healthy, Sky Moore gets bumped up. Even if the Chiefs do draft a wide receiver, which I'm okay with. I'm not saying Sky Moore is going to take a massive hit. I'm saying if they do draft a wide receiver, Sky Moore has always been a slot guy. He is not going to be demanding over 100 targets, even though there is 100 targets vacant now with Juju Smith and McCall Harmon. Let me remind you, Juju Smith is now with the New England Patriots, and he did leave behind over 100 targets this past year. So let's just say Sky Moore gets half of that, 50 targets out of the targets that he got last year, which was 33. That's about 70 to 80 targets. That's a decent amount of target share for someone like Sky Moore, who is going to be on your team, a good solid flex option with the hopes to be a low-end wide receiver too. So this is why I believe you should be getting Sky Moore. Not only that, before I close this, I do believe he's going to take the next step even in year 3. Once again, Travis Kelce gets older. Someone has to step up. There's going to be a shift, whether that is somebody that's going to be coming in the draft or later on, maybe someone that they trade for. Sky Moore is always going to be a solid wide receiver too with the investment from the Kansas City Chiefs. So if you can right now, I'll be going out and acquiring Sky Moore. My second buy low wide receiver that you should be going out and acquiring right now, that is Michael Pittman Jr. for the Indianapolis Colts. And let me tell you why. Okay, Michael Pittman currently right now is wide receiver 20 according to the community. Let me remind you, in the beginning of the season this past year, when you're doing your dynasty starters, when you're doing your redraft league, Michael Pittman was the wide receiver 6, going off the board as the wide receiver 6, and was ranked the wide receiver 6 according to the community this past year, because obviously with Matt Ryan, he was coming in, he was a better quarterback than Carson Wentz, etc., etc. Now he is wide receiver 20, and he has fallen. And yes, he has fallen because he had this quarterback carousel with Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger, Nick Foles, all those quarterbacks. But now coming into this year, the Colts do have the 4th pick. They're supposed to be drafting a quarterback. Who is that going to be? We don't know. Okay. Let's just say it's Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, because I do believe those are the 2 quarterbacks that are going to be available for Michael Pittman. I think that is going to be exactly what he needs I would say outside of Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger, or someone like a Sam Ehlinger who is still struggling, not going to live up to expectations. So if they were to acquire Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, it may be a little bit of struggle this year, and maybe you could get them at an even lower price than next year. But once again, when that quarterback rises, so does that wide receiver going into the 2nd year. So I think this is probably going to be one of the lowest prices you can get, unless it is really, really bad for those quarterbacks, right? But hear me out. I think this is a perfect opportunity, because right now everyone's really hyped on the rookies, right? Everyone's hyped on, obviously, Jackson, Jordan Addison, Quinton, Zay Flowers, and all those guys have, according to the community, some of those guys have already been ranked over Michael Pittman, and that's exactly why he's falling right now. And like I said, let me remind you, he was going as a top 6 wide receiver in your dynasty startups or in your redraft leagues. Let me remind you, in 2021, Michael Pittman was finished as a wide receiver 17, and that was with Carson Wentz, a guy that was very inconsistent, a guy that was very up and down, over 121 targets and 6 touchdowns in 2021. And in 2022, with all those 3 quarterbacks, Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger, and Nick Foles, he finished as wide receiver 20, over 141 targets and 8 touchdowns. Look, Michael Pittman is a superb wide receiver. I think he's a great low-end wide receiver. I would say he has a ceiling to be a wide receiver 1. He is a wide receiver 1 wide receiver, but that all depends on the quarterback. That all depends on where he can be and where his ceiling could truly go with a good, consistent quarterback. According to the community, you can get him for a really, really good price. Okay, Michael Pittman right now going for the 108 in dynasty startups. And like I said, if you guys are really into this wide receiver class, which, Zach and I are, but if there's someone like Quentin Johnson at the 108 that you don't like and you rather have Michael Pittman, that's a trade you can go out and do right now. Would I do that? No, because I like Quentin. If you don't like a Zay Flowers, if you don't like a Jordan Addison, you can go out and get a Michael Pittman, that proven wide receiver right here, right now. According to the community, he is worth Tony Pollard, who is the running back 11 according to the community. If I can trade away Tony Pollard for Michael Pittman, I will be doing that in a heartbeat. Austin Eckler, also a running back 10 for, according to the community. If you could trade Austin Eckler, maybe you can get a little bit more in return just based off of the ceiling Austin Eckler has in this team, or vice versa. Maybe you have to send a little bit more. I'm really happy to do that, to pivot to a Michael Pittman, who is a younger wide receiver. So if you want to go out and acquire Michael Pittman, I think this is a really good opportunity, a really good chance for you to go get him right now. And yes, the quarterback play is in question, but if you believe in Anthony Richardson, that has a massive high ceiling as a fantasy quarterback, obviously with his legs, but can improve just like someone like a Jalen Hurts with his arm, Michael Pittman is going to be a guy you want to invest in right here, right now, before his value skyrockets like someone like a Devonta Smith in his second year. So if you can, go out and try and acquire Michael Pittman. My next buy low wide receiver, both of these guys I'm going to be having back to back here, but let's keep it short and sweet. Diontae Johnson is my wide receiver that you should be going out and acquiring. And yes, it's not sexy. Yes, he's not going to be this guy that's going to be wild, but he has the upside to help your team going to the fantasy championships. Okay, he's currently the wide receiver 35 according to the community, and only 26 years old, going to be 27 years old. Let me remind you what Diontae Johnson did in 2021. He finished as wide receiver 8. Okay, over 169 targets with 8 touchdowns and 1,100 yards. That's Diontae Johnson that we know and love. Obviously, he was getting peppered with volume, and is that sustainable? Probably not. Right? Probably not. And that's what we saw this past year in 2022, where a lot of people say a massive regression candidate was Diontae Johnson coming in this past year with 147 targets, only 800 yards, and 0 touchdowns in 2022. And that's exactly what people were worried about. The part I believe we forget to forget often is that he was transitioning quarterbacks. It was Mitch Trubisky and then Kenny Pickett there. So there was a lot of inconsistencies with play. Kenny Pickett, his first year in the league. Now he's going to go into his second year, Kenny Pickett, and play with Diontae Johnson, who they did re-sign, obviously a 2-year contract, a team-friendly deal. And this could be a really safety blanket, right? Diontae Johnson has dominated on the outside, has dominated in the slot, and has been a guy that has handled the workload. And I know George Pickens is there, and we all expect him to take the next jump. But if George Pickens does become this guy that we all expect him to be, Diontae Johnson is going to be there with wide open opportunities for still 100+ targets, okay? So I think this is why I believe he's a great buy low opportunity. Not only that, once again, fantastic route runner. Diontae Johnson, wide receiver 35, according to the community right now. He was going as high as wide receiver 16, in Dynasty startups in August, and now wide receiver 35. You can get him in the 6th, 7th, 8th round. At times we see Diontae Johnson go, and that's exactly where you want to be getting him in a Dynasty startup. If you want to trade Diontae Johnson away, there are some pieces you can be doing. Diontae Johnson for DeAndre Swift. That is a very even trade if you don't believe in Swifty, especially with David Montgomery being there. Diontae Johnson, if you want to go younger with Amari Cooper, I would personally keep Amari Cooper, but if you want to keep, have that for the community, Diontae Johnson, Derrick Henry, you might have to throw in a little bit more to get that deal done to acquire Diontae Johnson. But if you can do that, I would absolutely do that. So there's definitely some opportunities for you to be acquiring Diontae Johnson on the low. Once again, not a sexy name, not a guy that is going to be blowing you out the water and say, he's a guy I'm going to be starting all year as my wide receiver too. He has that ceiling, but we need to see it first, and this is exactly why I believe you should be going out and acquiring Diontae Johnson right now. My last buy low wide receiver I believe you should be going out and acquire right now, because I did bring him over a month ago, and he still hasn't risen significantly because I think the community is still sleeping on it. But there's some that are catching up. Elijah Moore. He's currently the wide receiver 43 according to the community, and the last time I brought him over a month ago, he was wide receiver 48. So he's only risen 5 spots in the community. But in our community, in our dynasty starters, in our mock drafts, in our live streams, before I brought that video out, he was going in the 10th, 11th, 12th round. Now he's going in the 8th round, especially after him getting traded. So if you guys don't know, Elijah Moore was traded to the Cleveland Browns for a 2nd round pick in the 2023, for the Browns 2023 2nd round pick this year. And now he's going to be going to the Browns with Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper, and going to be going into the slot there with Deshaun Watson. And let me remind you, this is going to be the best quarterback he's ever played with outside of Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, and Mike White, Deshaun Watson has been a top 5 dynasty and just quarterback in fantasy overall. The majority of his career, obviously outside of this past year in the year that he sat out, right? So Elijah Moore going to one of the best quarterbacks right now that we know in fantasy, coming back and fully having a full year under this playbook for Deshaun Watson, that is easily going to be, easing in Elijah Moore into this offense. And we've seen the success with Deshaun Watson and other wide receivers like Will Fuller, like Brandon Cooks, obviously DeAndre Hopkins. Look, I'm not saying Elijah Moore is going to skyrocket. I think the price is still there for you guys to take advantage for Elijah Moore. When I bought Elijah Moore as a buy low over like a month and a half ago now, he was going for the 208 to the 210. Now he's going for the 205. And I do believe that's going to continue to rise. He's currently my wide receiver 35, according to community wide receiver 33. I can easily see him going into the high 30s. I would say the low 20s. Once we hear these conversations from Cam, once we see Elijah Moore, all these reports saying Elijah Moore and Deshaun Watson, great chemistry, right? Elijah Moore is going to be down the middle of the field, great chemistry, right? We're going to hear those reports and we're going to be so excited about Elijah Moore and forget what happens with him. And according to Matt Harmon's reception perception, he's going to be a guy that is really good against press coverage. He's in the 78th percentile in man coverage with 74th man percentile, and zone only 37th percentile. But that's what Elijah Moore, and mind you, he didn't play the majority of the season this year because he was struggling, really struggling, trying to stay on this field with all the drama going on with the head coach and Zach Wilson. But overall, Elijah Moore, one of the best wide receivers coming out of his class that year. And I think we are all missing out on it right now. And I think it was so skewed with Zach Wilson coming in. It was all about Zach Wilson and Elijah Moore and everything happening with Robert Saleh. And then, Elijah Moore couldn't get to the next step. In Elijah Moore's second year, Garrett Wilson comes in. Elijah Moore immediately dies because everyone thought that Garrett Wilson was going to be the superstar, which he was. But once again, it was Zach Wilson that really didn't play the part in the quarterback play. Elijah Moore didn't have anything to do with that. I mean, from my belief and from all the Elijah Moore lovers and believers, it was just the opportunity wasn't there. The opportunity was not presented to him or given to him in the right way. And I think exactly now going to the Cleveland Browns is the best time and place for you to go out and acquire. Once again, going for the 205. If you can get it for the 205 right now, I am doing that every single day. So if you're watching this in one of our follower leagues, send me the and you have Elijah Moore and I have the 205, send it. I will accept it right now. So my list: Elijah Moore, Deontay Johnson, Michael Pittman, Sky Moore, all my buy low wide receivers, and my sell high wide receivers, Kadarius Toney. Guys, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of my takes, if they were good, if they were bad. Either way, I already know what it is. My perspective, your perspective. Comment down below. Let's have a conversation. And as always, it's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.